The penthouse on the top floor of One Vanderbilt towered over Manhattan like a dark crown, all glass and steel and cold power. Inside, the air smelled of Tom Ford cologne and money, old money mixed with new blood money. Damien Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, city lights glittering below like scattered diamonds he already owned. His black dress shirt was rolled to the elbows, exposing the corded forearms that had snapped necks and signed billion-dollar deals with the same effortless strength. She was his. Every breath she took belonged to him. Every heartbeat, every tear, every scream. Anastasia Steele, no Anna, lay curled on the massive bed behind him, still unconscious from the fever that had nearly killed her. Her dark hair fanned across the silk sheets like spilled ink. She looked fragile, breakable. His little wife. His obsession. 3 nights ago, she had tried to drown herself in the marble bathtub just to find the marriage certificate he'd tossed into the water. 5 minutes. She'd stayed under for 5 goddamn minutes before he'd kicked the door in and dragged her out, ice-cold and blue-lipped. He'd done mouth to mouth while his heart detonated in his chest, while his men stood frozen because if she died, they all died with her. "You're mine, baby girl," he'd whispered against her lips, pumping air into lungs that belonged to him. "Touch death again, and I'll follow you there and drag you back." Now she was burning up with pneumonia because of him. Because he'd played his cruel little game. Because he was a sick bastard who couldn't let her go. The private hospital wing he'd bought out for her smelled of antiseptic and fear. Damien hadn't slept. Hadn't eaten. Hadn't moved from the chair beside her bed for 72 hours. His usually immaculate hair was disheveled, the shadow on his jaw dark and dangerous. The nurses trembled when he looked at them. The doctors didn't dare tell the billionaire CEO and rumored mafia king to leave. Then her eyes fluttered open. The first words out of her mouth weren't his name. "Let's divorce." Everything inside him shattered. He cried. Damien Sterling, possessive husband, obsessive alpha male, the man who made grown men piss themselves, cried like a child. Snot and tears and broken pride as he clutched her legs through the blanket, face buried against her thighs. "Please, baby girl. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. You're mine. You've always been mine." She stared at him like he was a stranger. He'd married her in a fever of revenge and possession after her family destroyed his. Forced marriage. Age gap. Enemies to lovers twisted into something darker. She'd been 20, sunshine and innocence. He'd been 32, darkness and vengeance. He'd clipped her wings, locked her in his penthouse, his Italian villa, his yacht, any gilded cage that kept her close enough to ruin. But she kept trying to fly. So he'd thrown the marriage certificate into the bathtub and lied. "Find it and you're free." She'd nearly died for it. Now she was awake and asking for freedom again. He laughed, a broken sound, and wiped his face with the back of his hand. Then the mask slid back on, cold, ruthless, beautiful. "1 year," he said, voice like gravel and sin. "1 year you stay my wife. You fulfill every duty. You sleep in my bed. You wear my ring. You let me touch you whenever I want, however I want. You behave, little wife, and in 1 year I'll sign the papers." Her eyes widened, hope flickering like a candle in a storm. "You promise?" He leaned in, lips brushing her ear. "I'm a monster, baby girl, but I keep my promises." She nodded. Terrified. Desperate. Good. A week later, she was discharged into his Maybach, wrapped in one of his cashmere coats that swallowed her whole. She clutched the new phone he'd given her, already bugged, tracked, monitored down to the last breath, like it was a lifeline. She wanted to see her family. He let her. The Rolls-Royce Phantom glided to a stop outside the crumbling Lynn estate that he'd personally bankrupted. Her parents rushed out, smiling too wide, eyes haunted. Her brother looked like he'd been dragged through hell, because he had. Damien's men had worked him in the coal mines for weeks. No visible scars. Just broken spirit. 10 minutes. That's all he allowed. She glared up at him, cheeks flushed with fury. "You said you'd be good." His hand settled possessively on her waist, fingers digging in just enough to remind her who owned her skin. "I am being good, little wife. Touch her and die. That rule still applies to everyone. Even you. She bit him on the neck in the car. Hard. He groaned, dragged her into a bruising kiss while the driver pretended not to exist. She tasted like fury and tears in his. Always his. Later, in the walk street near her old university, she ate spicy skewers like a starving kitten while he watched, jaw clenched. He hated the garbage she put in her body, but she looked so happy he almost forgot he was the devil. Almost. That night, back in the penthouse, he reminded her what wifely duties meant. He carried her to the master bedroom, black walls, black sheets, red ropes coiled on the nightstand like sleeping snakes. Cartiers and Van Cleef glittered on her throat and wrists, marks of ownership money couldn't buy. She tried to hide under the covers. He dragged her out, pinned her wrists above her head with one hand. Say it, he growled against her throat. She whimpered. I'm yours. Good girl. Clothes tore. Silk ripped. His belt buckle clinked open. Punishment and pleasure braided so tight she couldn't tell them apart. He took her against the wall in the shower, bent over the balcony railing 47 floors above the city that bowed to him. Every cry she gave him he swallowed like communion. Mine to ruin. Mine to keep. Mine to break and remake. After, she fell asleep curled against his chest. New phone clutched in her hand like a talisman. He stared at the lock screen, him kissing her senseless, and felt something dangerously close to peace. The next morning he drove her to university in the Bugatti, windows down, her hair whipping in the wind. She looked free for 5 seconds. He hated it. At the gates he yanked her across the console. Remember who you belong to, baby girl. One wrong move, and I burn this campus down with everyone in it. She bit his lip until it bled and ran. He licked the blood and smiled. His little wife thought 1 year was a countdown to freedom. It was a countdown to surrender. She just didn't know it yet. She's mine. Every breath, every heartbeat, every tear, every scream. And when the year ends, she'll be on her knees begging to stay. Because no one walks away from Damien Sterling. Not even the girl he'd killed a world to keep.